Hello friends, welcome back to Pathshala. Today's session we will learn a special topic, that is respiration in human beings. So, respiration in human being is a vast series of actions. Oxygen from air we intake or inhale, and that oxygen helps in oxidation of food. Means the food is broken down into smaller components and it reaches each and every cell in our body. And after reaching in the cells, the food components broke down or get oxidized via oxygen or with the help of oxygen to provide us energy. And after that happens, or after that process, carbon dioxide and water releases as a byproduct. So this mechanism is known as respiration. Human respiration occurs in respiratory tract. So human respiratory tract is a long passage which contain the nasal cavity, nostrils and nasal cavity. So this is the nostrils and this cavity is the nasal cavity. Next we have the pharynx structure, then the larynx, then we have trachea, bronchioles, alveoli and the lungs. So let us discuss each and every part of this respiratory tract one by one. So the first part, or the very outermost part of this respiratory tract is nostrils. So the first part is nostrils and nasal cavity. So this is our nostril and this cavity is known as nasal cavity. Nostrils are the external or outermost opening of the respiratory tract. Then the nostril opens into a cavity-like structure or a pipe-like structure. This cavity is known as nasal cavity. This nasal cavity is lined by the ciliated epithelium. This nasal cavity lined by ciliated epithelium and mucus secreting cells. So when we inhale air from outer environment, the microbes or the bacteria or the dust particle also we inhale with that air. So this ciliated epithelium and mucus secreting cell helps to eradicate most of these dust particles or the microbes, or the mucus secreting cells actually capture those dust and microbes that we inhale from air. After the nostril and the nasal cavity, there the pipe is known as pharynx. So this is a common pipe, that is pharynx. We learned pharynx in the human digestion also. So the second part is pharynx. Pharynx is a small pipe-like structure. This is a common pipe-like structure, and there is a palate that separates the nasal cavity from the mouth cavity. The upper bone or the upper jaw bone actually separates the nasal cavity from the mouth cavity. But the two cavity meets in a common pipe-like structure that is known as pharynx. So, the pharynx is the common pipe-like structure from where the air and the food passes in the air passes in respiratory tract and the food passes in the esophagus. Here in pharynx, here is a flap-like structure present. This flap-like structure is known as epiglottis. This is epiglottis. So epiglottis is nothing but a flap-like structure. So what's its function? Its function is when we swallow food, it covers the windpipe so that the food won't enter, or the water we intake won't enter into the windpipe. So when we swallow food or when we drink water, the epiglottis actually closes the windpipe so that the food or the water won't enter into the windpipe. But when in normal condition, the epiglottis is open and the air passes in the pharynx. The pharynx also contains the ciliated and mucus secreting cells, ciliated epithelium lined by ciliated epithelium and mucus secreting cells. So in normal condition, or when we won't swallow any food, or when we won't eat or drink anything, in that time the air passes in this pharynx get moistened to enter, and the microbes present in the air also captured in the pharynx linings, the lining cells of pharynx, because they have the mucus secreting and ciliated epithelium cell. So the microbes and the dust particles, the remaining parts, actually major portion captured in the nasal cavity, but the remaining parts captured in the pharynx portion, and the air also moistened to enter into the next part of the respiratory tract. So the next part of this respiratory tract is larynx. So this box-like structure is known as larynx. So this box-like structure is known as larynx. So larynx actually is a cartilaginous structure, box-like structure that produces sound. It has two vocal cords, or it has two cord-like structures. So larynx, third one is larynx. Larynx has two vocal cords that produces sounds. When air passes in the respiratory tract, the air forcefully enter into the larynx, and in larynx the cartilaginous structure or the two vocal cords actually vibrates when the air forcefully passes through it, and it produces different sounds. So the sound box, so in our body the sound box or the sound producing organ is a sound producing structure is larynx. In human male, it is also known as Adam's apple. Next is the ring-shaped pipe-like structure. This is known as trachea. So this pipe-like structure is known as trachea. So this is the fourth part of our respiratory system. So fourth part is trachea. It is nearly, the trachea actually nearly near about 11 centimeter long. So it is 11 centimeter long and 2.5 centimeter is its width. Then The trachea contains a C-shaped ring-like structure. So C-shaped ring-like structures, and it is made up of cartilage. So when air passes through this trachea, the tracheal system, due to the presence of the ring-like structure, it won't collapse, and the tracheal rings actually distended from one another. It started from the uh, beneath the larynx, and uh, after traveling near about 11 centimeter, it actually branches into two parts. So the trachea also have some ciliated and mucus secreting cells in its epithelium lining or its inner lining. Then the trachea branches off into two parts. So this two part or the two branches are known as bronchi. So the next part, or the rather I say the fifth part. The fifth part is known as bronchi and bronchiole. So the trachea branched off into two parts. So this two parts or these two parts is known as bronchi. So these two parts are known as bronchi. It is also ring-like structure. This pipe is also contains ring-like structures, and this bronchi, when reaches or enters into the lung, it divided into many parts. So these smaller or tiny branching parts of bronchi is known as bronchiole. So the main branch of the trachea is known as bronchi, and when each bronchi divided into many pipe-like structures, so these tiny pipe-like structures are known as bronchi. So this bronchi actually helps the wind or the oxygen that we inhale to enter into the lungs. Then the bronchi actually branched off into bronchiole, and the bronchiole then ends into a balloon-like structure. So the sixth part of our respiratory system is alveoli, or the balloon-like structure. So this small balloon-like structure is known as alveoli. Alveoli is actually the basic, the structural and functional unit of lungs. So, alveoli actually the functional unit of lungs. There are near about 700 millions of alveoli, or these balloon-like structures, present in each and every lung. Each alveoli have a dense blood capillary network. So each and every alveoli have a dense and rich supply of blood vessels, so that the air enters into this alveoli. When oxygen enters into the alveoli, it the air present or the oxygen present in this alveoli diffused into the near about blood capillary, and the hemoglobin present in the blood circulates the oxygen into the First, it carried the oxygen-rich blood into the heart, and then heart pumps the blood in our whole body. Similarly, the carbon dioxide produced as a byproduct in the respiratory process in our whole body carried to the heart first, then heart pumps the blood into the lungs, and from lungs it enters, or from lungs the blood, the carbon dioxide actually diffuses into this alveoli structure, and the carbon dioxide exhales back or diffuses, or it thrown back in this respiratory tract. So next part or the last part is the lungs. So seventh part is lungs, the main structure of the respiratory system. So these are the two lungs. This is the left lung and this one is the right lung. So the right lung is slightly bigger than the left lung. The left lung has two lobes. The left lung has two lobes in it, whereas the right lung has three lobes. It is smaller than the right one because it has to accommodate the thoracic cavity has to accommodate the heart on the left side of our body. So that is why the left lung is slightly smaller than the right one. The lung actually supported by, or it is actually guarded by a muscle like structure here. So this muscle like structure is known as diaphragm. Diaphragm, which separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity, and it is the base or support of the two lungs. It is a muscular structure. So if we study the lung structure, then lung has two outermost coverings. These coverings are known as pleura. So this coverings is known as pleura. So the pleura has there are two pleural structure in our lungs, the external pleura and the internal pleura. And between this external and internal pleura, there is a fluid filled structure or a fluid like structure in between these two pleural membrane. So this is known as the interpleural fluid that present between two pleural membrane of our lungs. And this full system of respiration or respiratory system is also known as pulmonary system. So the human respiratory system is not only human, other animals also. The respiratory system is known as pulmonary system also. So thank you so much for today's session. We will meet in next session. Thank you so much.